was learning, they gave him a crash course out. They took him to Adelaide, they gave him a crash course
we go
on
that
how
way,
to
maybe?
fly plane.
No, can't rotate.
Is filming and photography permitted?
Yes.
And then bomber command, it was the only one who came back from this.
You want to raise it?
I don't know what it's called, the whole.
Oh, yeah.
The air permissions when you flow the missions.
But that was the very first insight that I
we're only
really
gonna
got into that.
Yeah, that's
I'll have to
interesting.
sit. I'll sit next to Nicole. Doesn't allow you to tilt
I'm
sideways
normally
for some
more
reason,
in-
so
into
we'll
the
just
tanks.
that'll just get Elisa,
Because of
Nicole, and me.
him.
That'll do.
The
Well,
only
it's actually
Second
backwards,
World
but
War German
we'll just leave it.
flying Foggy Wolf,
that's
which
fine.
is, I think he bought it for 10 million or something. It's bloody beautiful, but anyhow, it's just.
Be aware the camera's
It's
on.
really, like, I was really fascinated. We built this model replica for Thursday, and it took us a long time. It took us something like 2 or 3 months to do.
Yeah, I like the real things.
Yeah.
My wife always bought me models for my birthday, and a year later, I owned the real thing.
Big smile. For the Monaros. Yes, of course. For the Monaro.
There's a blue pen missing. Someone's stolen my blue pen.
I gave it back.
Frisk everybody. Yes.
You can't trust the ratepayers with images.
No, blue one. Johnny? No. Did you have that blue pen? She did. All right, this one might be.
For God's sake, buy a few pens. Everybody's running around for pens. I just gave you $20. Buy a few pens.
Everyone types.
Did you put it down when you went to get my $10?
Go to the RMS because hundreds of it. Just take a few of them.
If you need a cash later, my wife's niece is
We're live. It's 2 o'clock. We can pretend we're on time. It's 2 o'clock.
Didn't you say 1:30?
Yeah.
Bloody, it's you worse in the government.
1:30 to 2. Our rule, we always used to say 1:30 to 2 because everyone was travelling in so far.
Okay.
That's about it. We didn't print 1:30 to 2. We had a lot of trouble getting it in the paper.
It was 1:30 to 2.
Is it? It was? I don't think it was. It
Yes,
doesn't matter.
Malcolm's, yeah.
Doesn't matter. We did.
How many other people?
So we do need somebody, before we officially open, we do need somebody to be the temporary controller of the meetings because we have to spill our positions.
That'll be Malcolm, wouldn't it?
We could, well, he's a public officer though,
No, he can't.
no, it might have to be Charles. Charles can be the temporary chair. Because we have to spill our positions and,
Vacate the positions and nominate.
Oh.
So he should sit up there, right?
one week do the thing, so.
When
I
do we?
think you can.
Are you happy, Lisa? You ready to rock and roll?
Just arrange a.
Everyone good? Thank you all for coming, and for our viewers, such as we may have, the ratepayers and residents, I keep getting in trouble, the other way around.
Well, ratepayers first because they're paying.
Ratepayers and residents, and the Snowy Monaro Ratepayers and Residents Association. And we are having our AGM as well as a regular meeting where we will talk about the Snowy Monaro Council November business agenda. This is the paper version of the business paper, which we will talk about, and along with a bunch of other matters. So that's the nature of this. Thank you to Adrian for coming along and Malcolm for his persistence with getting the Monaro Post to finally print something.
Failure was not an option.
Failure is not an option. Failure is rewarded in the Snowy Monaro. Did I say that out loud?
Can I hear violin?
Yes. So, admittedly, our attendance here today is low, and there's a busking
more than
festival on in town, but we're about half of the membership. But I'm also going to mention before we go into the AGM that the abhorrent behaviour of the trolls on Kathy Wassink's Cooma notice board. Kathy, why do you allow defamation, slander, false statements? And I hope you got a good lawyer, Kathy, because you'll be hearing from mine in the new year. So what we suffer as a Ratepayers group trying to help the community is a constant attack. And we're all volunteering our time, and all we get is attack from the faceless trolls. None of whom turned up to nominate for a committee role today, despite the invitation. So, with our AGM, we will spill all of our positions, and we have all of the nomination forms, which we'll hand over to the interim chair, and anybody else wanting to nominate for a position, if you can come and do that now. If there's anyone else in the room, I'm pretty confident there isn't, then we will spill our positions, we'll walk away, we'll get Charles to come and be the interim chair, and if there are no other nominations, he will quickly read through. And if there are no other nominations, elected, contested.
Only mine's missing.
Where's yours?
I thought you voted.
No,
It's,
no, it's not in there.
it's with Nicole's blue pen.
Yeah, we just got one more to put in. We don't want to.
Nicole's blue
We
pen.
don't want to miss out on our secretary.
What order was it?
Yeah, they go missing.
And it's great that we have the media here today as well, in Arizona, here in person. Woo! Thank you for the Monaro Zone.
Reliable media.
So with that bit of the meeting for the AGM, we will now declare all the positions within the organisation vacant or vacated, subject to nomination. We'll hand over to Charles. If Charles can come and jump up here, and he will basically receive the nominations. If you want to read them out quickly, and if there's no other nominations from the floor, then we don't even have to vote. It's just elected, uncontested. Don't believe me? Go and read the rules. That's,
Just reading through
This
those.
is,
you're just going to read through that list.
Right.
this is the outgoing. If you're curious
I wouldn't.
to remind people.
I'll do that after.
Oh, yeah,
I'll just
no,
read
this,
them.
these ones.
These are in order.
Oh, okay.
So Andrew,
Mhm.
that's
All right. This Snowy Monaro Ratepayers and Residents nomination for the committee. I'll just read out what is here. For the role of president, we have Andrew Thaler. For the role of vice president, Nicole. Secretary, Lisa. And treasurer, Sean. And the public officer, Malcolm Rose. And ordinary member, Teresa. And we have another ordinary member, Chris Chan. And an ordinary member, Nick Lungerton. Now, anybody else nominating for any of these positions? No? Well, we declare everybody in their position.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Temporary President.
Good one.
you all for the nominations, and we'll hand those up to the secretary. And the ordinary committee members are, as long as the official roles of president, secretary, vice president, we also have some what they call ordinary committee members. Doesn't mean they're ordinary people, it just means that they're extra on the committee to help fill out I think you need to have 7 on the committee for a public thing. So with regards to the AGM, admittedly, we haven't had a lot of meetings in the last year. When this was kicked off, there were plans for monthly meetings. We were live streaming. There was some pushback where people were choosing to watch the live stream rather than come to the meetings, and then there was a kind of a decision made not to live stream. This time we've got a tweak. We haven't advertised the live streaming. So we are live streaming via YouTube, but we haven't advertised it ahead of time. There was one request to be able to participate, but it's a bit time consuming with everything else that's going on. And we do have some previous minutes. There's not really a lot of money in the account. Is it $240 or something in the account?
There's $257.90 plus approximately $190 for memberships to be banked.
How much was it? Sorry, 190? Did you say?
190 to be banked, 190
Yep.
memberships, and there's still memberships coming in.
Yep.
As well.
So we do encourage people to join, and you can pay with through the website with the Stripe, with the EFT, with cash. We will make a declaration that there was what appeared to be a large cash donation to the bank account yesterday. It was actually our money. We transferred it to the wrong account. We became Commonwealth Bank customers, and it was an unnamed bank account in our bank accounts. And Lisa thought through that, whatever, we've never used Commonwealth Bank, and so anyway, that'll be rectified. This room that we're in today, we've used this, the snowy room I think they called it, we've used this many times. It now costs $180 to use, unless you're a not-for-profit community and you get it for half price for $90. So we received a donation of $90 to pay for the room today. We probably won't use this room again if it's going to cost $90 a time. So we will need to think about where else we can meet. One suggestion was the council, because as a councillor, there's a committee room which the councillors can book. So maybe we can go to the council. So I will. Here's the thing: if you read the legislation of the Local Government Act, councillors are to have access to the building, printing, secretary, toilet, and the kitchen. So legally, we should be able to walk down to the building at 81 Commissioner Street, and I'll just pull out my little digital access and in we go. But I wasn't given one, was I?
I think we do want to stay on some neutral ground.
Council is just in the public service, Nicole.
I agree, but.
So one of the things that we can report with
Mr. President, just for the record, the current administration fee or membership fee is what?
$10.
Still 10. Okay.
Yeah, that's our new
Yeah,
updated
that's why I
price.
asked. For the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah, membership is
Yes.
$10
It's
for
The
the year.
membership was changed last,
That's right.
Last day.
and if we wanted to change it again, we'd have to change it now. But
Well, that was
there's
why I
no
was just
conversation
flagging
about
that.
that.
So, yeah.
At this point in time,
This year, we're just keeping it
Stay.
the same.
But we're happy to
we've only
receive.
just started putting things together.
Donations.
We're happy to receive donations from the community
Yeah,
who have
that's
expressed
correct,
an
yeah.
interest. So not only are you donating your time and attending,
Yeah,
anybody can
you
donate.
can, you can become a member for $10, but you can also, donate any amount of money.
Another recommendation was to use the meeting room at the new sports facility, because I don't think there's a person in this room that has ever set foot inside the
No.
sports facility to know what it looks like, including me.
I have.
Oh, you have?
I've played there.
Okay.
It's great. And Jindabyne needs one.
Oh, okay.
Just for your next council
I'll just
meeting.
make a note. Jindabyne,
Because our netball club's got 22 teams and Cooma's hardly got any.
right. Where should we put it?
I don't know, maybe the council will donate some land. And a clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a president's report
We play in
perspective,
sport now. It costs us about $300 a month.
part of the reason we haven't had a lot of meetings is because one of our erstwhile committee members was elected to the council, which has consumed his entire life, basically, I suppose you could say. It's consumed all of our cash. Elisa and I we had about 60,000 sitting aside to buy silver, and we ended up giving it all to our lawyers. And at the moment, the lawyers have got about 130 or 140,000 on account, which I would be obliged to pay, except that as a councillor, I have an indemnity coverage from council's insurer, which we've activated despite being told we couldn't do it. We've proven that we could. So we'll get into that a bit more in the main meeting, but it appeared to be a great success that the ratepayers had actually got a committee member into the council. We didn't have a lot of meetings because we were at the council every 2 weeks. We were basically, this gang was turning up at the council.
As a group, we've been supporting the independent councils.
Yes, Reuben Rose,
We haven't
Luke
been
Williamson.
documenting it, we've been just boots on the ground for ever since the
Election a year ago, and each council meeting ranges to 5 hours, and they were running only 2 a month. So from a president's report perspective with regards to not having enough meetings, we ended up meeting at the council monthly meeting, and that took up a lot of our effort, a lot of our time. And again, it's all the same faces here now as that generally come to those meetings. So that's our rationalisation. One idea is to have a quarterly in-person meeting like this, and maybe some online in between, but also still to keep going to the council meetings because they're starting to heat up. Like I said, that's just the November agenda right there.
Are you supposed to find time to read that?
Yes, a week. Yes, councillors have a week to read that. There's actually a bit more missing. There's one more, but they won't get into that at the main meeting.
I've been writing speak.
Well, that's actually one of the problems. There are pictures, but they're also the financial reports that they have in there are only they're scaled, so they're only about half of the page and they're sideways, and they're faint and they're shitty colour contrast, and it's really hard to read. And I'd say that's deliberate. So we're going to bring that up
That should be the
again.
clear bit. The money.
Should be, it should be, but you know, we've had this discussion with them in the past. Why do they do it? It feels deliberate. Not much else we can report except that we do want more residents to join. This is a way to push back against the agenda of your council, and if you are happy with how this area is being run, then I don't know, join the Jindabyne Chamber of Commerce or something. But if you're not happy with how the area is being run, you should come to the Ratepayers meeting and be heard. And on that facetious note, we shall close the AGM and thank all of our past year committee members and ordinary members for your efforts, and look forward to the next year. Thank you all. Right, so now we will open the
General meeting.
what happened to my notes?
See Nicole's coming through.
So you want those, secretary? We'll open the regular meeting. Anyone need a toilet break? comfort break, video.
Yeah.
So, we haven't done this for a while, but there's been a lot going on, as everybody knows, and it's pretty shit. So, as I said, being suspended for 6 months from the council, not only that, I was banned when I was elected. If you remember, we had all that nonsense. The amount of money that has cost just Elisa and I, not just money, but time. I've done nothing but legal work since May when the suspension was first put on. And what's interesting is, and I can show you if you want to see, there's some really shitty things to report. And one of the reasons we think the suspension was put in place is that the staff, or some staff of the council, were threatening to go on strike if I wasn't removed. And there was actually a brochure being circulated, signed by the union, and that the staff were threatening to have a stop work meeting and protest in Centennial Park. And I think that was probably like the 20th of May or something, they were planning to do that. And so the suspension was fast tracked. And then of course there was a second suspension that followed the first, and surprise, surprise, the third suspension following the second. Inside of that, there was also a referral to the court by the department where they want me sacked and banned from local government for 5 years. So in total, there's 4 court cases running. And councillors have an indemnity coverage under the councillor expense policy that was in place when we were elected in October 2024. It says that you are entitled to an indemnity coverage for legal actions brought against you as a councillor. So I incurred.
This is mine.
I think so.
Like a stupid thing.
You know what? Means the love took it. Someone wants him. So council has an indemnity policy to cover councillors, very similar to corporations. You would have a director's liability or a director's sort of coverage, and the policy said that you could activate it for any actions brought against you. So I did some of my legal bills, the early legal bills, and the council said, no way, not paying it. So then I contacted the insurer, who we were told was the insurer, directly, and they said, we're not insurers, we're just brokers. I said, okay, well, we don't know that. So they passed it on. The insurer for our council is actually CGU as an entity, and that's facilitated through a mob called Civic Risk Mutual, and that's part of a self-insuring group of councils. And surprise, surprise, with 4 legal actions, 4 indemnity claims, council at the September meeting maybe, put through a new councillor expense policy to prevent councillors, basically, the plain English version is to prevent councillors from accessing their indemnity coverage. And as I've said, within the matters that I've got running, it's well over $150,000, $170,000 spent. That between barrister, lawyers, and that doesn't include my time. But we've travelled to Sydney. What have we travelled? 4 times? I think 4 or 5 times we've been to Sydney, usually overnight or 2 nights, to be in court all day. Usually you've got to get there the night before, the afternoon before, meet with the barrister, you're in court all day, and that's another $1,500 expense. So the actual cost on somebody as a councillor is immense, and I draw everyone's attention to the matter of Kelly Darley versus Parramatta, where she spent 2 years fighting a corrupt censure, getting a councillor in trouble. 2 years. She spent $150,000, and the council apparently spent $1 million trying to do it to her. And in the Supreme Court in New South Wales, she was all the actions against her were completely overturned, and she was awarded $140,000 costs. Her council, Parramatta Council, then gave notice of their intention to appeal, so they would have likely have gone to the Court of Appeal on ratepayers' money. And just this, I think it was Wednesday night this week, Tuesday or Wednesday night this week, Parramatta Council voted to not continue the appeal. So the Supreme Court judgment of Darley v Parramatta Council will stand. It's not going to be appealed. And no surprises that I've invoked the matter of Darley in respect of all of my disciplinary actions. The simple principle in Darley is that any councillor that is disciplined or censured or code of conducted, then there is a process. It's the procedures for the administration of the model code of conduct. It's rigid, and if you don't follow it, that's it, you're out. And in the case of Kelly Darley's, it wasn't followed. It was incredible what they actually did. There was a complaint made against Kelly as a councillor for revealing confidential information.
Yeah.
She said, that's bullshit. It's in the Sydney Morning Herald. I just quoted the Sydney Morning Herald. They didn't care. They put in complaints, went to an external review agency. The external review agency produced a report and said, we propose no action, that Kelly may give an apology and do some further training. The code of conduct manager in the council went, don't give that to Kelly yet. I want to go over that. And they rewrote it to recommend that Kelly be disciplined or censured. And then censured, like an official slap on the wrist. It's nothing. It's completely retarded. Can't use that word. It's nothing. It's like a legal discipline. We, the elected body, censure you for revealing confidential information that wasn't confidential. Was confidential.
It's not a suspension, and it's
not a suspension. It's not a fine. It's just a piece of paper, I suppose, that says you did something naughty. But what's interesting, if you could imagine, if you could pretend for a minute that this was the bundle of documents for Kelly Darley's censure, that this, from the general manager and the conduct reviewer, they would say, yep, this is the report, and we're going to give this to the councillors to vote to censure Kelly. What they actually did was that here's the report, and all of the relevant documents were withheld. And so the councillors only had this much of this much. And so the Supreme Court said you have to give all of it to the councillors. They have to have all information to be able to make a fully informed decision. And that's one of the reasons why the matter failed. It's also because the report was edited. So there's the original report saying, I recommend we do nothing. It's not serious. But that the council staff changed it. Anyone want to guess what might have happened in the matter of Thaler? Snowy Monaro Regional Council? I won't opine any further, but we can't imagine. The councils have been caught out now through the matter of Darley, and we'll see where that goes. So my matters are continuing. Moving on, because it gets tiresome. A couple of the main issues I want to take you through, and again, we're also focusing on our audience, whoever that will be. We are encouraging memberships, so please get your friends and tell them to at least join up for $10. We have a November, I'll make it brief, but a November council business papers. There's one bit missing. There's been a recent workshop. On the day I came back, there was a workshop into council's property portfolio. They want to look at rationalising and tidying up. So they gave a report where they found properties they didn't even know were owned by the council. So it's not a bad idea. What I think is quite weird and all of that is that council pays rates to itself. So if you're a project manager or you're a depot manager at the Cooma Works depot or something, in your works budget for, let's take the example of the Polo Flat Works depot, it's quite a big piece of land. and you've got outdoor crew and roads crew and tar tanks, and you've got the sewage people storing all their sewage equipment, and you've got the water people, and you've got trailers and trucks and the library van. You've got a whole mixed bag. You've got the mechanics workshop out there, you've got fire trucks coming in, all that sort of stuff. That land has a rates cost associated with it, and a water and sewer cost, and a waste management fee. And that is to get paid to the rates department out of the council's own budget. It's not even just accounted for, it's paid. So,
That happens both at state and Commonwealth levels as well.
yes, it's actually quite bizarre. I understand it in one sense, but the actual paying of it, so if you had, for example, a site which has a average land around this $3,500 a year in rates, and $4,500 in moderate sized place, and if your site budget was 100,000, 5% of that's gone, giving it to the finance department, which means you need to get that 5% out of the council in your annual budget anyway. So everyone's, whatever budget you give, 5% of that's gone. It's not going into crew, it's not going into diesel or trucks or maintenance. It's a weird circular thing. We're going to dive into that a bit further as councillors, but it does seem a bit weird. I think we should just turn our council into a church, and then there is no rates, because churches are exempt. We did mention the the Ministry of Local Government. I think it's got a
It's got a nice ring to it.
we could have little badges and
Yeah.
boil water alerts in Jindabyne. We want to flag that now.
Have they been
Lifted.
lifted?
They have been
They
lifted,
have?
but it's a recurring problem, and it seems to be underappreciated by the council and by the community. I put up a post asking anybody to send in photos of your water, and I got two. One came in early, but that was because it was an existing conversation I had with someone, and then another photo came randomly 2 weeks later from another one of our members, and the water was quite brown. It was pretty awful. And as we dived into it, I'm thinking, do people not care? Do people not notice? But everyone's apparently got filters. So one of the new campaigns we were looking at doing was show us your filter. So rather than show us your water, take your filter out, change it, take a photo of your filter, show us your filter. That's
People
what.
have posted that before in the past too, where it's been the same colour as the water photo.
That's
that we
right.
recently had.
So boiling water for turbidity is weird. It's not really what you do, because it doesn't address or deal with the turbidity. Turbidity is particles, be it mud or dirt or what have you. So there's a bit more to this story, so we're going to try and dive into that in the council agenda in the December meeting, because the November meeting is already locked in. SRV funds. So does everybody understand SRV, special rate variation? You remember excuse me for a sec, we've got Councillor Williamson, you dropping in? That's okay, we're in the middle of it. No. Put you up there, thanks. I thought maybe we might have had another councillor turning up. So the special rate variation, do you remember the discussions about, does anyone remember why we got it? Why we needed it?
Was it roads or the nursing homes?
So roads and nursing home is one argument. Any other ideas?
There was a cumulative debt over the post-amalgamation, which was not being arrested, and that was why it was deemed to need a significant increase, which then, as I recall, was broken up into 3 stages. It was really on a lack of money, and not the increase in expenditure was outpacing the funds coming in from various sources. that's a very, very simplistic thing, but it was all there in the May the 2nd report, special report, which I've got a copy of 2 years ago.
So my memory of a lot of the SOV stuff was it was heavily predicated on roads. And I'm wrong.
No.
Apparently it's not roads, it was more assets and renewals and what have you. But my memory of the public conversations at the time was that it was heavily weighted towards roads. So just a snapshot here shows that there's a poor understanding of what the intent of the SOV was. Councillor Williamson put in a question on notice. And this is the business paper, anyone can go and have a look. Page 241, questions on notice from Councillor Williamson. What were the staged investments in asset renewals planned in each of the years specified in the SOV application? What amount was council planning to spend on these investments if the SOV was not approved? What amounts of revenue was received in financial year 23-24 and 24-25 due to approval of the SOV? What was council's investment in asset renewal to progressively stabilise the current infrastructure backlog and to undertake renewal and maintenance of our roads and other community assets? Now that's a term in italic, I think it's taken from some of the SOV discussion. I think that dovetails in. So there was a roads element and an infrastructure element. My memory is it was weighted on roads, but I'll read that again. Asset renewal to progressively stabilise the current infrastructure backlog and to undertake renewal and maintenance of our roads and other community assets.
That, if I may, it also dovetails in the audit report of 2 years ago where council didn't know what they actually had in the way of assets, roads.
Yep. Was there a variance between the amount of additional revenue received and the amount expended? And if the amount spent was less than the amount of additional revenue received, what were the remaining additional funds spent on? So I encourage you to go, because this was where we ended up with a 55.25% increase in our rates over, originally it was 5 years, the 5th year was denied, so we've got 4 years. So it was about 12.3% first year and then 10.8 on the remaining 3 years, for a total of 4 years of rate rises out of a 5-year campaign. Page 241, the November report. There's some little tables, and if we look at it in the response, what amount was received in the 23-24 financial year, and it was 1.76 million in additional rates revenue, and then 24-25 it was 2.031, and we are further in question D, what was their expenditure? So again, the numbers don't quite add up, but the original budget for 23-24 total, they've got down here 1.481. They told us 1.76, and over here it says 1.481. But then actuals, they've only got 1,074,000. And then the original budget in 24-25, they're saying 3.181 million received, but then they've only actuals, they've only got 2.4. So they've now apparently got a $1.2 million reserve in, it appears, in unspent SOV funds. So we're going to have to dive into this because it's a bit weird that we wouldn't then be spending SOV funds that we've collected in. I don't think that's kind of really the deal that we swallowed. The other one is that stage spend over the 4 years. So they were proposing to spend in 23-24 $280,000 on enhanced asset management planning and reporting, $153,000 on enhanced property management and maintenance scheduling. So we've got reporting, scheduling. We don't actually have maintaining. So I'd like to see the word maintaining rather than writing reports and visiting places to look at them, because I think one of my questions will be, have we replaced the tiles on the kitchen at the Adaminaby Community Club, which is something I asked in November last year. from their community reports. And one of the suggestions from one of the councillors is, well, why can't they glue them back on themselves? As the tiles were falling off. Enhanced staff training and development,
Can't get my head
214,000.
around that one.
So this meeting in Bombala is going to be interesting because that's dancing. It's what we should all be doing. It's probably easier. Live in ignorance, Sean. So for the moment, we've got planning and reporting, management and maintenance, training and development, building renewals. 0, Malcolm. Quell your shock. Road renewals, 834,000. Bridge renewals, 0. Other structure renewals, 0. Stormwater renewals, 0.
Well, but that's
23, 24, but they've
But then they
received
come through.
$1.7 million in that year.
in that year, correct.
And
Got it.
then
Yeah, yeah.
they're going to do no stormwater spending, even though we're about to do some stormwater spending with some Cooma Creek upgrades. They're going to have to rebuild some stormwaters. So the disconnection between what council says it's going to do, what it does, and then these new plans that come in left the field. So there's a big plan. I think it's in here. So, oh no, it's not in here. It's in council's email. In council's email this week, there was a report supplied about upgrading Cooma Creek, putting in rock dams to help control silt, prevent erosion, getting rid of weeds, putting in more native vegetation to improve the corridor. And it requires stormwater upgrades. So we're not planning for any stormwater upgrades out of the SOV money, but we could have. So they're going to spend $250,000 a year across the 4-year period on enhanced staff training and development out of SOV funds, which is not really the deal. That's not what we signed up for or accepted. So one of the motions I will propose that we pass today is that we oppose the 5th-year SRV. So the Mayor has an agenda to ask IPART to reconsider the 5th-year SRV refusal. So it was refused because we didn't fill out the paperwork properly in respect of our 5th-year application. And the Mayor wants that 5th year, but on these figures and this information provided, we're just spending a whole bunch of it on training, report writing and visiting buildings rather than hammers, nails, tin and glue. So we shouldn't allow a 5th-year SRV, I believe. As a ratepayers, as a councillor, I can say this as a councillor as well, I don't think the money's been spent in accordance with the community's contract. What we told the community we were going to do, we're not doing, and we shouldn't reward that behaviour. And I think I can say that as a councillor, and code of conducts go to OLG at olg.newsouthwales.gov.au. And so that's one motion we'll propose. We'll do them at the end quickly. There's another discussion that we are going to start having over the next little period, and that's to do with the employment of Stephen Dunshea, who was the 6-month interim CEO of the council. He was brought in upon the demise of David Hogan, former CEO, who resigned when I was elected. We've covered that. It's a funny story. Code of conducts go to OLG at olg.newsouthwales.gov.au. One of the problems with employing general managers is it's strictly detailed in the Local Government Act how you employ. You must employ a person. You can't employ a corporation or a legal fictional entity, for example. And quite often the employment arrangements are discussed in the confidential part of the council's meeting, and there's an expectation of confidentiality remaining. Problem is that it's a contract with a public entity, and the contract is with the councillors on behalf of the people in the area. And so you would think if you're spending public money taken from people by virtue of taxation, compulsory acquisition, which is taxation, that the people would have a right to know the terms of the contract, how it operates, and the remuneration. So the remuneration was in the order of $350,000 a year, plus a car, plus accommodation, as he was coming in temporarily. One of the questions I asked in public council, from memory, I don't think it was a workshop, I'm pretty sure it was a council meeting. Dunshea bragged that he wasn't going to charge for accommodation, which was $700 a week for where he was staying in Jindabyne or Berriedale or whatever it was. He said that he would not charge. In his contract, it says that council was responsible to provide car and accommodation and travel expenses to and from his home in Sydney. So $700 a week times the time of his tenure is about $22,500 from memory. So did we pay it? Did we not pay it? These are some of the questions. But more importantly, we as councillors were not provided the contract prior to execution and signing. It was signed by the mayor. And one of the rules is you must also affix the council seal to the contract, and that appears not to have been done. And the contract that we have is with LG Services company, and that's for an as needed labour hire arrangement of Stephen Dunshea Proprietary Limited with an ABN. And so Stephen Dunshea was subcontracted by LG Services, but Stephen Dunshea Proprietary Limited was subcontracted. So therefore, Stephen Dunshea Proprietary Limited was hiring himself. So you've got Stephen Dunshea working for Stephen Dunshea Proprietary Limited. Stephen Dunshea Proprietary Limited was engaged by LG Services, whose LG Services provided as needed basis supply arrangement as a labour hire. None of that appears to meet the legislation. So we'll put up a quick motion. There is a letter I can quickly go over. There's a basic letter. Progress Association are working on it. We're working together with the Progress Association. That there are some strong questions. Now, why this is relevant is that if Dunshea was not legally appointed, none of the delegations to any of the staff were lawful. The decisions, the settlement, there was a secret settlement to pay $23,500 to people's overdue rates whose house was damaged by a flood, and there was a settlement to Michael Chotar, and I'm pleased to also inform you that Kylie Keenan finally received her settlement money. She wasn't paid any interest, the money wasn't lifted up for having waited 5 years and 10 months. She was given the same money she asked for 5 years and 10 months ago. She had all but given up, and through the persistence of our ordinary committee member, Mr. Chan, we championed Kylie's cause, and we got her some money. And that wouldn't be imperiled by this, but the point is, Dunshea signed a confidentiality clause with the overdue rates people who had their money paid, their overdue rates paid out of the water fund. He won't even give any detail to council. Supposedly he's our employee. We find out he's not our employee, he's LG Services employee. So we're going to have to pursue that to make sure that we don't have that problem now, and we didn't have that through Hogan and Baskin. Because council has a general manager, it's an apex pyramid. General manager at the top, everyone thinks the councillors are above, but they're not. The councillors are actually right down the bottom. And you have the whole organisation runs under the pyramid of all the power comes through the general manager of the Local Government Act through to all the staff. And for example, one of my favourite stories is one of our supporters in Jindabyne has received a dangerous dog declaration, and he's in the Cooma local court. Steel yourself. It's not his dog. And he's now got a $1,500 fine for failing to build a dangerous dog enclosure. It's not his dog. So
It's a tiny dog too, isn't it? It's a wee little thing.
I don't know. The Rangers don't know either. The Rangers have never seen it. They've got no idea what its identity is or its microchip number. It's basically off hearsay. So the Rangers are using a delegated power to authorise them to use the Rangers Companion Animals Act, for example, through the General Manager. And the General Manager isn't lawfully employed. The Rangers have got no power. And the court case would fail on that instance. So if this friend of ours gets a lawyer, he'll ask for costs. And the council's got to pay costs again. Part of what will happen is one of our councillors has 10 motions in the council business this week, and one of them is to report on delegations, which is found on page 224 from memory. So page 224, a report on delegations. This was originally put in place in March, and it was adjourned from the May meeting, and it says to provide a report to councillors setting out the delegations and delegated positions, like a delegation tree. Same as with one of the staff organisational tree, who was responsible for who and where are all these roles. Well, we'd like to see the delegation pathways, because quite often the general manager delegates an area manager, who then delegates a head ranger, who then delegates 3 rangers or something like that. So we want to see that as well, to make sure it's lawfully compliant. Provide assurance that SMRC has acted in accordance with New South Wales law to provide lawful delegations and sub-delegations, and satisfy the requirements of the Local Government Act 1993 to review the current delegations of staff and ELT. That is a requirement to be done in the first 12 months of every new council term, 4-year fixed council terms. My watching of the council meeting, I think it was September meeting, maybe, they just kind of put up a thing and said, yeah, we checked it all and it's fine, vote, passed unanimous. There was no proper discussion. They didn't review it. They didn't do anything. To close off this thinking, Mr. Dunshay's annual declaration is included in the attachments to the reports, and it's dated 3rd of February 2025 for the period June 24 to June 25. And it says source of income, and this is for Stephen Dunshay. He's an ARIC member for the Gunnedah Council. I think it's there's a small fee paid, but it's not much. An ARIC member for the Cootamundra Gundagai Council.
What's ARIC?
Is the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. So the ex-CEOs love these gigs because they understand it. Luke is our councillor representative in our ARIC, and we've got some new ARIC members, but you need to have a head and then usually 3 committee members, and then you have a non-voting councillor in attendance. And they got really shitty, but I used to join in and watch the ARICs, because as a councillor, you're entitled to watch any committee. You can go to it, you can watch it, whatever. And so I got the live stream link off a back of a truck, and then there was a bit of a kerfuffle as to why Councillor Thaler was in. I'm not saying nothing, I'm just not voting, I'm allowed to watch. Of course, I did turn the volume on and I did say something because it was relevant. This is interesting on the 3rd line, source of income. It says CEO contractor LGSG Snowy Monaro Council. It's his handwriting, it's his form. So Mr. Dunshay has acknowledged that he's a contractor. So that's a problem. That's coming up. That'll be a motion that we'll pass to put this letter in. We'll get the letter squared away and organised, etc. One of your favourite topics, ladies and gentlemen, is a new agenda for a new headquarters.
Oh, I can't believe it's come back.
Calm yourself. It's meant to be a great topic. I think staff deserve a new building.
Oh. Because we've got so much money sitting in the bank.
That's what the rates is going up for.
How big was the deficit? 40.58 million or 42 million, whatever it was. Give or take a Tuesday, Malcolm, 40 million deficit.
About the same amount that they're going to spend.
The new headquarters is back on the agenda, and there's no resolution of council. It's just happened, and then we had a workshop last week, and it was brought up, and the staff project managers did a presentation, and said that we need a new building. There's only the report they're working on said that there was 7 years left of the building's life, and that was 2 years ago, so there's only 5 years left. And you'll love this bit. We need to replace the switchboards. We've got to upgrade the fire services. We've got to fix the fire doors. We've got to, all these sort of things. I think you'll find we've done most of that. Nobody in the executive leadership team who's been there longer than a year had spoken up to say, actually, guys, don't put that in. We've already done that work. And that's why I'm quite disappointed that one of the most relevant council executives who's been there for a long time didn't see fit to speak up through the ELT process of staff bringing the report to the executive leadership team and say, I want to give this report to the councillors through a workshop. But no one went, hang on, haven't we done that? Because we shut the building for a week, we put a generator in the car park, we had a freak out because we had to keep the IT system running because we couldn't afford to turn it off. No one knew how to turn it back on, was the reason I was given. I've watched the IT crowd. That was the reason given. It was like, we can turn it off, don't know if we can get it back on again. So they hired generators, did power transfers. So they replaced the main power cables and switchboards because they were hot, because the cables were hot. They put all new locks on the fire doors because they had deadlocks and they didn't know where the keys were. I'm not shitting you. They did not know where the keys to the deadlocks because it's an old residential apartments. And so the fire doors were key to the apartment.
How long have they been operating there?
They knew that they were operating, I think it's 8 years ago, they put in their own DA to convert it from residential use to commercial use. But they had been illegally occupying it for 10 years. In 2007, I think they stripped out the top floor, Lisa. Remember we did with our big green Merlot, we lifted all the rubbish out from the top floor with our Merlot, and we lifted all the new carpets and the timber and everything in because they couldn't get it up the stairwell. So we lifted it all in through the balcony. Well, that would have been 2007. Brian Kaufline did the work, the builder. So it was a residential apartment. They converted it to the council chambers. They finally kicked the residents out in 2006. They rebuilt the top floor, and dearie me, they put too many people on the top floor, and the top floor was bending. So yes, this is back on the agenda. Top floor was bending.
It was.
They had to do a deflection test.
Is it concrete?
It's concrete.
And it was bending.
Yes, it wasn't built for the floor loads that it's currently subject to. So anyway, that's
The furniture would be way more than it.
furniture, filing cabinets,
Oh my God, anyway.
reports.
Yeah.
So you need to know this, and everyone in the community that you know, tell them you need to know this, because this is going to be the next SRV agenda. Before we finish this SRV, they're going to ask for another SRV for a new building. Now, admittedly, the building is not fit for purpose.
It's ugly.
It's ugly. Thank you. Not my words. Not my words. What do we do as a community?
40 million?
What do we actually do?
Wait till you have the amalgamation question, I would suppose.
Yes, amalgamation, that's a good segue. Thank you, Secretary.
Sensible staffing numbers,
So the
looking at the,
Because you wouldn't need such a big thing.
recommendation from the Secretary is that we consider the demerger and get that finalised before we look at whether we build new buildings or what have you. Because
Technology, I want to do less than that. In future, less stuff. So I want to be doing everything.
some working from home, I mean, we know there's plenty of that now, but one of my questions in the IPNR, the Integrated Planning and Reporting, was in doing all these reports that we do, how much of it did we have to do by law and how much of it did we do because it's what we do? And it's probably half of it we don't need to do. And my recommendation was if the government, state government, the federal government want all these reports, give them a bill. They only want them until they've got to pay for them, and they don't want them. Simple. But that is seen as reducing staff numbers, which is not in their interest. But we also have some anecdotal evidence coming that out of the circa 400 people employed in this council, that 10% of them are off on leave, stress leave, injury leave, and there's at least, I think, 10 people on psychosocial bullying stress leave. Malcolm?
Mr. President, may I raise a point that your predecessor, and I'm talking now as a ratepayer, signed off on a report, joint report with the Progress Association in relation to a firm recommendation that to help stabilise the pretty volatile issue of the finances of the organisation of the council and the governance processes employed by the council, that there should be forensic investigation and audit of that, so that the resulting money issues, which were profound at that time, would be able to be balanced with what is actually needed in the way of money, people, and correct processes. Quick as a, and that was signed off by Matt Nolte as previous president. Quick as a flash, over the last 2 years, nothing has been done.
Well, sorry, Malcolm, that also dovetails into that volunteering offer from the Progress Association and us ratepayers, where there are retired engineers and the like were volunteering to assist council.
Well, that is exactly what I'm raising, is the fact that you have just given a fairly good overview with regards to dysfunctionality, muddle management or otherwise, coming from that kind of a background, not muddle management, project management issues, that I would suggest that in the aim overall the next year or two, that we actually look at this whole issue of confidentiality and transparency, because it's no use having meetings where you don't actually have real live data, or if you do have it, you're not allowed to see it, or you're not allowed to use it, because one can see very much a trait of more and more things going into the confidential opaqueness tray of council, who then at a flick of a wrist transform a normal meeting into confidential issues. That, to my mind, is a litmus paper for things to be covered up. I know when things are confidential in the commercial world, but I don't believe it should be so in a organisational process and in a processes process. There's too much being covered up. So may I make a suggestion from the floor that one of the strategic aims of this Ratepayers Association, as well as the Progress Association, focus on prosecuting that idea through the councillors. And as you have said, there are lots of willing people. We don't necessarily need to be paid, but we don't like being led by the nose.
Yes, so there's I agree. So we can bring those two letters and what back up. One of the other couple of issues I want to touch on, is exactly to your point, is this. This is the contamination assessment report of the Bombala Railway. And council undertook this report out of the, we've got $1 million of Christine McBain. So there's an EPA letter on top that basically says, I should have this image here. It's a soil assessment of site 1, 2, and a visual inspection of site 4 of the Monaro Rail Trail from 26th of February. And this was from Robson Laboratory. So this was conducted in February. We were given basic awareness of it June, Malcolm?
How much did it cost? I didn't
80
quite hear it.
$84,000 from memory, I think they spent on this. We got $1 million from Christy McBain for the first phase of the rail trail to build 3 kilometres or 5 kilometres of trail from Bombala out. And so there's been project scoping and design and all this sort of stuff. And that this thing turned up. And we said, great, give us a copy of it. No, you can't have a copy. And then we said, well, why not? Oh, well, yeah, you can have a copy. Of course you can. You can have a copy. And then they wouldn't give it to us. And we had a public meeting in Bombala. Progress was there. Cooma Historic Rail. Alicia and I went. Malcolm and Lindy were there. Ruben, Nick Elliott. There was Darrell Davis, Linda Summers, Tricia, and the consultants, and then there was the project managers. There was Connie Lickus from sort of infrastructure. Yeah, there was a bunch of Bombala people as well. And the consultants sort of talked about their report, and one of the big questions we had, we'd sort of got a précis, the councillors had received a précis and fell off the back of the truck again. There's so many trucks on the Monaro highway, just got to follow them and documents fall off. And I'd read the précis and it never mentioned the word silica in it anywhere. So this report is a whole lot of tables. And again, the thing that I get the shits the most with is you're going to have a table on a page. Make the table fit the page, right? Make the table fit the page so you can read what's in the table. It's constantly throughout it. You know, in some cases they do show that they can do it. It appears that council did not get approval to conduct these works out of the rail corridor managers. That they did penetrative testing down to about 2 metres where they dug holes, and because they're digging in contaminated soils, my understanding is you don't put contaminated soil back in the hole. You would take it away and put inert fill back in your hole. So they said that they tried to put it all back into the same layer that it came from. At this public meeting, I picked up a couple of big lumps. I've done a video which I can put up later. I picked up, and that's one of the pieces that I picked up. That's a piece of silica. That is basically coal ash or coal slag from the boilers, from the steam trains. And it's a bit dark and white quite often. Now this is absolutely everywhere on that rail corridor. And why this is important is because there's, in the report it talks about 2 types of silica. There's monocrystalline, so there's amorphous silica and crystalline and monocrystalline silica. And it's the crystalline silica that's really bad. This is probably highly amorphous, but it's still silica. You know what the engineered bench tops that are being banned by the government because of silica, the grinding of stones and what have you, because of silica dust. So this shit is everywhere on the railway because instead of using rock, we used coal ash in amongst the sleepers to suppress the weeds and to bed the sleepers down. And I had a big piece of it at the meeting, and I was accused of bringing it from some other location by other councillors. And now the accusation has morphed into that it was bitumen. That it had bitumen in it, and it was probably okay. It might have silica in it, but it had all bitumen in it. It's probably okay, which is weird. For purposes of illustration, I bought you another type of slag. This is manganese slag from Tasmania. And you can see it's glassy, very, very glassy. So if you want to have a look, feel free to have a look. They're not hazardous. I have a funny story relevant. So that's manganese slag, right? And that is silica from the coal from the Bombala Railway track. We had a workshop with the Friends of Bombala Railway, Heritage Railway and the Rail Trail. That was 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday. And I bought another piece exactly like that in with me, same thing, and there was a workshop facilitator, completely independent woman, awesome person, and that Nicole knows her. And her brief was to try to get the three parties to come up with a way forwards, which we did in a two-stage process. So on that first meeting, it was just Friends of Bombala. We had about 2 hours, and then the rail trail had about 2 hours, and the heritage had about 2 hours individually. And then the week later, we all came together and combined, and that's when we came up with a solution, which I'll get to. In that first meeting, I am now accused of contaminating the council chambers by bringing hazardous waste into the council chamber. And the general manager, or the CEO, Ms. Vu, wrote an urgent affidavit to tender in court against me, effectively stating that staff had to put in contamination reports and workplace incident reports because I contaminated the chamber by bringing in contaminated waste. And yet in the same breath, they say, that's fine. It's only silica, it's fine. It's not a problem. We're just going to build a trail across the top of it. It's not a problem. And code of conducts go to olg@olg.nsw.gov.au. But this is unfortunately the situation that we are now in, which is why the Ratepayers, Progress Association, Heritage, Friends of Bombala, if we keep standing our ground, we have finally got this report produced to the public. It is one of these reports in here, and this is a stupid thing. The general manager said you can't have this report without a vote of the council authorising its release. These are the public papers. It's in the public papers to be voted on by the councillors in Bombala on Thursday. So for one hand, you can't have the report until the council vote on it, but they're giving you the report before the council vote on it. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the councillors vote no, because everyone's already got it.
Excuse me, Andrew, in the business papers, the very top one, it also has a nice little get out of jail card free, which says X, Y, and Z, and the council has done absolutely nothing wrong, and a few other little pertinent words which I can't exactly remember.
You're talking about the EPA letter that sits on top of the report?
No, it's in the very top piece of,
Oh, in this
it's
one,
about 914 or something like that.
914.
What page was it on, do you remember? It's pretty rude.
I don't know if you can find it.
Yeah.
Have a look. Because the other thing is there's a motion at 11.9 that we have fortnightly meetings at the council from now on.
This is the very top one.
That is the top one. Yeah. So one of the concerns that's been voiced was that meetings were taking too long. If you remember that Nicole Overall, our erstwhile former MP for Monaro, was complaining in the media that our council meetings were taking too long. She was intimating that it was because of one councillor. Well, that one councillor hasn't been there for 6 months. And how many meetings have gone over time and had to be adjourned into a second meeting? All of them. So there's a further complication that with the new code of meeting practice that is coming in from December, and I've got to read it again, I just gave up reading it. I found typo and logical inconsistencies in it, and we'll see whether they survive. Find it? Oh yes. So with the contamination, okay, we'll come back to that in a sec. Thank you, Lindy. There's actually there's two shitty bits in this report. Actually, that's the other one. I didn't pick that up. So with the code of meeting practice revisions, they don't want councils to have any workshops or pre-briefing meetings or whatever, where councillors can just sit around and talk freely amongst themselves without the rigidity of the mayor saying, yes, Councillor Karen, and then that's 5 minutes. You've had your 5 minutes, and no, you've already spoken, you can't speak again. So you have this more informal where you can talk a bit more freely, you know, as grown-ups, for Christ's sake, you would think. That's going to be banned. The reason it's banned is because it's not open to the public, so the solution will be open it to the public. Only idiots like Malcolm and Lindy are going to come along. And Charles.
But I think it's a very important, just to interject on that very point, if you are going to ask people to come, then they should, if they are professional, be allowed to speak as well on a particular point, because they may actually know what they're talking about, as opposed to, with all due respect to all of those councils, some of them are really complex issues. Most of them haven't probably read all that data anyway, let alone absorb it, and therefore you workshopping it. You should be workshopping more things and not wasting the total council time, like the Bombala one, with a load of planning approvals and bits and pieces, and you'll run out of time before you get to the right stuff.
Yeah, so this is where it all morphs in. So one simple solution is to make it open to the public. And like I said, hardly anyone's going to come. And I wouldn't have a problem with, you know, contribution from the sideline, as it were, interested parties. We did this big property thing. Part of this is this property portfolio, and the director who's been on council for 40 years was talking about things, and he was saying, geez, I didn't even know we owned this, and I didn't know that. And he said, blah, 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 blah. And I then said, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. So he's been there 40 years. We've been here 20. And you work together. You just contribute with each other.
You've just seen a classic example, councillor, of a public meeting, and someone from the floor was able to assist.
Yeah, bring up a point. So with the motion that I've got to have fortnightly meetings, one of those meetings can be to catch up any overflow agenda from a heavy agenda. You'll have it as the overflow, but you can also have a part where, and this is an idea I think I got from the Wagga, I think it was Wagga Council, a mate of mine's on that council. They've got an idea where they have a meeting and then they devolve into a committee of the whole. So you still have the formality of the meeting and the mayor is the chair, but anybody can speak multiply at different times on different things. You can ask repeated questions on topics, for example. So you're then having an informal meeting within a formal meeting. So it's legally ticking the box for the minister's direction. And that way you could bring up issues, hash it back and forwards. That's another option that we can use with the fortnightly meeting agenda, because there's a lot going to happen. There's a lot happening. Now to jump back to this, in the Monaro Rail Trail Bombala section contamination report, Lindy highlighted page 148 of the November paper, 9.1.2. Since commissioning the contamination investigation, community complaints have been raised to New South Wales Heritage, Safe Work and Transport for New South Wales as the site manager. All complaints have been investigated by the respective authorities, and council has subsequently been cleared of any breach, wrongdoing or inappropriate work activities. I don't think that's actually correct.
And the veracity of that?
It's their own words. But this is where it gets on, it then talks about the outcome of the contamination investigation found below. Asbestos, there was no previous use asbestos detected at the sites, soil samples and tests taken. So they did limited soil sampling in the wrong place, arguably. And albeit naturally occurring asbestos was detected in quantities consistent with background asbestos. So there is naturally occurring asbestos. You still have to handle it as asbestos. You don't get away by saying, oh, that's the natural asbestos, we don't have to care. Creosote. There was creosote in the samples taken from the sleepers, which is positive because that shows that the creosote was properly impregnated into the sleepers. And it says no creosote was detected in soil samples. It's because there's not very many creosote sleepers in it. That's how it works, but they didn't necessarily test under the creosote sleeper. They just tested the creosote sleeper. But it says there was creosote in the samples taken, from the sleepers. It should be some sleepers. It's pretty poorly written. The old disused rail network is in poor condition, so it may be feasible to leave the infrastructure in situ, which would minimise disturbance of contaminated material. So the council is recommending that they leave it there, just put dirt over the top, and that's the track. And we come to a heads of agreement with the different entities to finally say, no, we won't touch the railway. We'll put the trail in the corridor alongside the fence line, for example, subject to contours and what have you. And this is the bit that I thought was funny at the page 150. The contamination consultants were asked what they thought of the substances which were brought to the meeting. This is the meeting that we had, Malcolm. The substance appeared to be very old slag bitumen, which may have contained both types of amorphous and crystalline silica. However, as noted by the contamination experts, if it was contained within large chunks of slag or bitumen, therefore does not pose a risk to human health if not crushed. So, A, it's not bitumen, it's just big chunks of slag. There's no bitumen in that either. And it says if not crushed. How do you bring dirt onto a railway line other than with an excavator or a trackscavator or a trackscavator dumper? It's going to crush the materials as you are working on the corridor. So they're trying to be really clever with the way that they say their various things. We'll speed it up to demerger. There is a phone survey on at the moment around the Shire. 70% mobile, 30% landline weightings. There's a bunch of questions they're asking. So they're going to ring, it's a telephone survey. And they're ringing, so they do this annually. So 70% of calls made. So it used to be the other way around. I think the weighting used to be predominantly landlines, but no one has them anymore. So it's 70% mobile. One of the questions was, how do we actually truth the mobile relates to an actual resident? They've got that under control. But
my question is, will they say that they don't ask the council staff, but they've run me, and because you're a councillor, they would not take my opinion?
Yeah.
So my concern is always any staff can never have an opinion counted, because they're not allowed to approach councillors, and they're not allowed to answer in the survey.
Even if
I just don't think that's right.
ratepayers.
Because they're ratepayers, and maybe they have valid points because they're seeing it from the inside, but they're not allowed to.
But if you think about it,
But you even just like an admin staff.
so there's
On the reception.
If you answer honestly and say, yeah, no, I work at the council, they won't take your answers.
there's 22,000 residents roughly, and there's 420 kind of related employment with the council. So then you add a partner to that, so we're at 850 just in staff. Then you got councillors, so we're up to 900 people immediately unavailable to the survey, who actually might give a shit about their area more than the average person. And I say that just as a simple reflection, because they work for it, they're choosing, they've a lot more connection to the area. We've just removed them from the equation, and their view is irrelevant, which I think is a short-sighted approach. I mean, surely there's just another category you could have on the end of your
What
survey.
percentage of population is actually being surveyed there?
I think they're going for about 1,200, something like that. I'd have to read the
So
email.
about less than 10%.
Yeah, less than 10%, but we've already excluded some 5% or more of the population by virtue of their relationship with the council.
Well, according to the legislation, the survey can come from the community itself. It doesn't have to be generated by council and conducted by council.
The council, yeah, so I think they are required to do this every year, and they do employ a consultant who's got pretty good track record in it. But
It's biased though too.
well, it appears that they're importing a bias.
There's already been two surveys, one with advocates and one with Ratepayers group previously.
So one of the questions has
Like
been,
a whole group. Yeah. How did they do that? By paperwork. So,
getting people to fill in. We put boxes at various locations previously and people just filled it in.
Yeah.
And Brantley was in charge of the results.
So yeah, one of them was
that's
the
great, 'cause
demerger.
I think the demerger slide's writing some notes there. There's two things we probably should do to back up the potential failure of theirs, is some educational marketing material around the pros and cons of merging.
Well, that's
And why
what's
this
missing.
topic is here.
Well, it's the pros and cons of working out the cost. This is voting of whether they even look to see whether they should
Even try.
try.
Yeah,
So the-
but a lot of people don't understand
So it's-
why this
I think it's
topic is even
500,000 cost.
existing. So, the reasons why this topic is rearing its
Yeah.
head. And then there's no reason why we should be doing it again, is doing a poll or a survey.
Some old survey pages.
It can be done online.
Well, we can dig them up and redo them.
Yeah.
I think that's the
So-
one,
Well,
file them.
It'd be
In-
interesting to see this,
Yeah.
those results, plus we could
Greatly
do
has.
another one as well.
Greatly Ingram has the results to
Mhm.
that.
Council passed a resolution that they would do an independent audit before they do a business demerger case. That was in the resolution action sheet update, I believe, in 23, 24, yeah, February, March, I think it was, because I spoke on it. And the thing was, council come up and said they're not going to have an audit because there's no money for it. So how does that work on the demerger business case if they're not going to do the independent audit first as per resolution?
Because they don't want to do it.
I know,
Yeah.
yes.
There is
When
always
they
money.
lose their power.
There is always money.
Mm.
And there's SOV money they've got sitting aside that they
That's
could
right.
task
Yeah.
towards it. Everything is circular and feeds back to itself. Should we have a new headquarters? How about we sort out the demerger question first? Do we need a new headquarters? If we stay merged, why are we not using the existing building fleet that we've got? Or if we demerge, we will obviously go back and use the existing building fleet. The question that's going to be asked has been added on to the 3 questions that they did have. They've added a 4th question that says, would you, in short version, would you support a demerger business case knowing that it costs $500,000 to do it? So it's a leading question. So it's completely irrelevant. Hopefully, most people will go, yes. Grantley's got about 1,500 signed pledges, as it were, to say we want to demerge. And it's a hot topic. The executive don't want to demerge. A lot of the staff apparently don't want to demerge because,
They're afraid of the jobs.
well,
Right.
some of the jobs will get moved back to Bombala or Berrydale or Dinbar. So there's a lot of self-interest. But we also must not forget that the merger was unlawful. Full stop. Court, the Supreme Court or the High Court, whichever one, Wallara and North Sydney, I think went to court. It was a Court of Appeal. Someone said it was High Court, whichever it was. They ruled that the forced mergers was unlawful because the boundary commissioners were not given all of the information. None of them had the KPMG report. And so on that basis, those mergers were quashed. I think Cooma had joined the court case, so they were not merged. And anyone else that was merged, if you hadn't joined the court case, you couldn't benefit from that decision, even though it's binding case law. So our merger is acknowledged to be ultra vires, but neither government will do anything about it. And so they had an opportunity with some amendments to the legislation in 2023. I think the Local Government Act was amended in 2023, 2024, and Labor took over power. Labor changed the amendments that were put up by the Greens, and at each pathway point that they put in, it was subject to ministerial veto. So the minister can veto every single step of the way. So you could say, yep, here's our petition of 10% of the residents of a former area we want to consider demerging. And the minister should then kick off the process. He can veto it. You could kick off the process and the process says, yes, you should demerge. The minister can veto it.
One thing that would be helpful to anybody voting for or against mergers or demergers would be what is in practice have been the alleged cost savings that were forecast to be done, and what have we actually ended up with regards to costs.
Well, that would come in the business case, you would think.
Well, yes, but we're doing almost a binary yes or no. One of the points was that it was alleged by the people saying, let's amalgamate various shires, we would be saving costs. It doesn't appear from the figures to have worked.
Well, I can tell you
And
that
for varying reasons.
if you look at the simple financial reports, if you go to the 3 councils' combined wages bill 2016 was in the order of 11 million. It's now about 36.8 from memory. So we've
The
got
rest of my case.
a massive increase in staff, and it doesn't even make sense because when they were merged, you weren't allowed to extinguish any positions for 4 years. But it didn't say triple the number of positions. It just said you couldn't reduce. And so our wages have effectively tripled in
So
the
if
merger
you keep
time.
focused on roads, rubbish and water in smaller, focused little councillettes, for want of a better word to describe them, that would be a very much more efficient way of getting a return, because more people will be doing work and not producing paper.
Correct.
And spending time on ludicrously long addendums, which most people are not even reading.
Well, a lot of these are
Straight out of Westminster.
yes, absolutely. A lot of these are attachments to the report. So there's an eco villa DA in here for Werrolong Road.
Oh, that's absolute crap.
Well, Charles will be speaking on it because he's got some strong concerns as a near landholder to it, in that Werrolong Road is not a public road and that the property is connected by a right of way connecting to another right of way. My favourite is that this eco villa concept is principally for the collection and harvesting of native seeds. Okay.
But it doesn't need all 11 councillors to be looking at that issue, you know, in a big organisation. It's wasting a lot of the councillors' time. They're just twiddling their thumbs.
Because there's objections, it's been brought to the council. But immediately you got one councillor says, oh, that sounds like an awesome idea. We need more collecting of native seeds. And another councillor says, where are the native seeds? It's all serrated tussock. So
I'll just mention one thing on that. As we all know, it's just not serrated tussock. There's love grass and St John's wort. And we do know previous owners of that property, and council has refused them permission to put a building on it. But also, I just raise one more issue with these eco cabins. I'm not sure what council's position is, because we got some across the other side of the river. Now, just on their Airbnb advertising, they're advertising for a yearly rental of it, you know, eco cabins. What are we heading towards? Is this just coming as a cheap way of affordable housing?
it's not a cheap way. It's a because I went through the LEP with Councillor Williamson the other day, and all of those things are against the principles of the LEP. It hasn't been properly applied and it's not been enforced.
Yep.
So the issue is it's supposed to be short-term, short-stay accommodation for eco interests. So if there was actually native seed to harvest on the property, then it's an eco-tourism idea. It'd be no different to, let's say, we've got koalas and we're going to go out and do koala spotting and koala watching or bird watching or crocodile watching. Who gives a shit? The intent in the act was idealistic. It's now being exploited where you get told you can't put a dwelling on there, but under the provision of the LEP for short-term guest temporary accommodation to foster tourism and ecotourism, you can put up buildings that are, what was the Chongs Road, 7.9 metres high, 3-bedroom with a diesel generator and its own septic tank. It's supposed to have a low footprint.
And not on a ridge line.
Not on ridge lines.
That's in council's LEP.
In the LEP, exactly. So, well, that's not short term. I mean, Yes, I went to the definition. So the Bombala meeting is, well, I'm going to use an Australian idiom. It's going to be a pisser because there are so many questions for the staff. We're not having any more pre-meeting workshops to ask the questions. We got told the direction from the minister is you ask the questions in the meeting. Wow. Bring a cushion. Because Ruben's got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions. Yes.
Defines that.
Oh yeah, they're on this side. I haven't got to them. I went through that list. I know. So the other quick topics we want to finish up on is the swimming pools. It'll be really interesting to see if the Bombala and the Cooma swimming pools are up and running at Christmas. I'd like you to have a look as you go past. They're kind of earthworks, concreting, all kinds of things. Interesting, the council is the regulator for noise standards and things like that, and that they were starting work at 6 a.m. and a nearby resident was moved to make a complaint that why does council get to ignore the noise rules. The special activation precinct, there is some conversations going on still about that. Welcome Councillor Hopkins to our little meeting, and just in time to find out you're on the committee now. Within the SAP, there's also another discussion. I can't think of the name of the mountain. There's some mountain.
Do you bet it out?
No, it's a different one.
Round.
Is it Round Mountain? Is that?
There's another name.
Is that up behind you? Sort of the tall one up behind you near East Jindabyne? They want to make
That's
mountain bike.
Jindabyne.
Oh, you mean
They want to mount mountain bike trails on it. So the government's
Oh,
asking
no.
for a partnership arrangements with entities to put mountain bike trails on it. But I was talking to Paul, and they're not doing to the top, so it's not that one. Anyway, so there's a mountain. I can't think of the name of it. It's right next to the edge of Jindabyne. We apparently are not going to have enough mountain bike tracks in Jindabyne, so that the government now wants to put in another one with a partnership arrangement with somebody for more mountain bike tracks.
So that hill was always looked at as in the plan, like years ago.
But they're not allowed to use the top. They're only allowed to
They're
go
not
sort of
allowed
three
to use
quarters,
the top because of the land titles one.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not far. It's up behind.
It's,
above
I
you.
think Bangara comes on one side and then there's, and I forget the name of it.
Bungara, that's not,
But
that's,
I can't remember
originally,
what it's called.
that's down the Barry Way.
it was called Round Hill. and then
Trisha, do you remember
somebody's-
it? Just talked about
Somebody's
recently.
named it.
And
It-
I haven't talked about
Like
this.
Widow Creek.
Creek.
Widow Creek.
So it's down the Barry Way.
It's called Widow Creek.
No, it's not down the Barry Way. It's on the edge of East Jindabyne, from memory. I was talking to Paul about it. Anyway, there's too much information, but that's something that's coming. There's also another DA in here from Craft Earth moving to rezone and change the zoning and purpose of land next to Leesville Estate, where there's a proposal to make it more residential. I would have some concerns that if you're going to have an industrial estate, you do not have residential within 500 metres of it, or you completely reduce the efficacy of your industrial estate. It just becomes a light service estate in that regard. The Jindabyne High School has an Aboriginal land claim over it, which I would imagine is the old high school, so yes, and I think is completely ridiculous, because if you look at the principles of Mabo and land claims in general, any land that has been alienated from the Crown as original Crown land cannot be subject to a land claim. It seems to be incredibly opportunistic that they don't care about the Crown land way out of bumfuck at the back of Jindabyne near the Victorian border. They actually want the old high school in the CBD. So let's not beat around the bush
Red
here.
flag, red flag. That's where we can put the sports facility.
Okay,
That'd be a perfect place for it.
there you go. So I would imagine that the land that the school is on is Department of Education land, and that it's been shifted from the original Crown ownership, or it might have even had something to do with Snowy Hydro, or there was a grazier lease over it, and then they shifted Jindabyne out of the valley in the 50s and put it up on the hill. So it's highly likely that that land is not original Crown land. And you can't make land claims on land that is not original. But I just think, knowing what's happening up at Polo Flat, the top end on the highway here, it's a complete bullshit land claim that was, where the Sydney Aboriginal land mixed in with the Bega did a land claim that none of the local Ngarigo ever knew about. And now we've got however many houses going on there. And it's all government money, and it's an immediate competition with the two other private subdivisions that are trying to get off the ground at exactly the same time in Cooma. So you've got a very lopsided, you've got an endlessly funded government developer trying to do social housing, and the political campaign, we pushed heavily on telling the truth of what social housing is. Social housing is police, fire, school teachers, nurses, public servants. So people that buy the hilltop will be private buyers, and all the plebs will be the public servants in the middle. And I hate to inform you that there's a rumour coming out of Queanbeyan that a whole bunch of problematic Sudanese families in Queanbeyan are going to be punted out to Cooma because the Queanbeyan people have got the shits with them, and that at a public meeting they were told that there would be an emphasis on encouraging them to take up residency in the new free or social housing in Cooma. Thought I'd lump that on you. I haven't got to the bottom of that rumour, but I've had it from two different independent people that they're not bullshitters. They actually rang us up to go, wow, you won't believe this. The last one on the little agenda that we had was OLG influence. I think it's pretty abundantly clear that councils are now creatures of the office of local government. There's nothing done without the blessing of the OLG. There's no decision, there is no individual thought. Everything is run through the OLG these days. And that's becoming quite a problem. Of course, the OLG doesn't exist. And we're back to that, we're back to exploring it, because the Office of Local Government was abolished by an administrative arrangement order in July 2019 by the governor. So, last thing I will say, legal update is I still have a court case listed for December for the second appeal, for the second suspension. I have fully served the 3 months of the second suspension. It has been under appeal the whole time. For various reasons, the appeal could never be reached. We're currently waiting for judgment on questions of law about double jeopardy, legal oppression, legally unreasonable, and what's called an Anshun estoppel might apply. An Anshun estoppel is that where an entity commences legal action against somebody and you do all the stuff, if there's other shit that you knew about at that time, but you waited until a later time to bring it up, you're not entitled to bring it up. And so the first suspension document was written at exactly the same time as the second suspension document was written, and that they share the same day for events. And the argument is, as was proved in Anshin, you're not entitled to your second suspension because everything in the second suspension you knew about at the time of the first suspension. So an Anshin estoppel should be placed on top. And then part of legal oppression is that it's cost over 150, 170,000. It's legally oppressive to force a councillor to be subject to defending themselves in this way, that this whole table would be this high with legal documents from OLG. They've been running 2 barristers and multiple lawyers. The first time we turned up, they had 6 lawyers in the gallery and barristers at the front.
I thought they didn't have any money.
They've had a big budget increase. They only had 40 staff. They're on the way to 400, I believe. OLG. Because they're running every single council. It is insane. So there's another hearing for the third suspension. The third suspension is currently stayed. It's listed the hearing. We can get to it by February. There's another matter, which is what we call the PIO referral. So I've been referred to the NCAT under the performance improvement order for allegedly breaching it. And we argue that's a legal double jeopardy because that referral is the exact photocopy of the first and second suspension. So that's double jeopardy. You've already been punished once, can't be punished twice, blah, blah, blah. It was quite frustrating that my barrister has now become a judge. He got a job appointed to the bench. So he's no longer available to me, but that happened at exactly the same time as the council's insurer stepped in and said, we're taking over the matter. And that's where we're currently at. So I'm now in the process of briefing a new legal team because I can't continue to use my old legal team. The thing is, I lost the barrister anyway because he got given a job on the bench in the Public Injuries Commission. Or Public Injuries Commission? I can't remember what it's called. So that's the long and the short of that is that there's a new legal team. December might not actually happen. We might kick all this up to the Supreme Court, take the whole lot and just get it up to the Supreme Court because it's just getting too ridiculous. For now, I'm a councillor. I don't know how long for. The limitation on me is that if there is a new code of conduct complaint that somebody may file in the NCAT asking for the stay to be withdrawn. And I have made representations to a relevant person that my perception at the moment is that our CEO is desperately trying to manufacture a conflict with me in her emails to conversations with false allegations of contaminating the council chamber. And if that's the start point with our senior executive level of the council, every day is a breathing. Does anybody have any, we will do the motions before we quickly adjourn, but anybody got any particular ideas or agendas you want to bring up?
Springfield Road ceiling.
Oh, I'm sick of hearing you talk. That's all you come for.
No, not just that. There's what do you call it? The green waste charges. But Springfield Road was allocated money probably 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, they did the other end. They
Yeah,
did the other end.
But I wanted to give it a fell side. But it could be done, and then there'd be more people from each end. Like it should have been done.
Yep, Springfield Road,
wind farm.
sealing of all roads is a major problem. One of the excuses I heard for not sealing the Nimbidabel end was that the wind farm was going to destroy it with all their heavy trucks and that they would then fix it. Well, that came and went, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it was a newspaper article about 2 years ago
But
that it was going to be done in August 24.
But we're supposed to be having the new part of the wind farm. So the stage 2 of Boko Rock was approved and redesigned to have half as many turbines, but they're bigger. They're 5 megawatts each instead of 2 megawatts. They're taller. So bigger towers, bigger blades, bigger nacelles. I don't know when it's going to start, but that would also then see construction activities along the power line from Steeple Flat into Cooma again. You know, that big steel power line that you see on the side of the highway? That'll have to have the other set of wires put on the other side. So you would see some, not major, you see some minimal activity, but that would need to be done. So those wires have got to get put in, and then the new stage. We've still got the Samiva Renewables pushing to do a wind farm out near the Brothers, which everybody's dead against. There's a solar farm going in, I think, to the north of Cooma somewhere. There's a proposal for one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's been talked about. There was another solar farm proposal for just on the eastern side of Rock Flat, halfway between Cooma and Nimbidabel. I haven't heard much more of that. That idea seems to have come and went. The Steeple Flat wind farm fell over a couple of years ago. The whatever it's called, right up back at Kybian, there was a proposal for wind farm. That's now National Park. So the bloke that owned that lane got the shits with his proposal being knocked over, so he sold it to the national park and pissed off all his neighbours because they've now got this bloody national park sitting in the middle of all their farms. Which means that the national park are going to pressure them to sell to bring up the size of the national park. So these wind farm things are actually proving to be quite toxic, not just because of your coal or renewables belief, but also the way the land is used and what comes of it. So November is a big meeting. Come down to Bombala, 1 o'clock. So the two motions that we will quickly pass, if everybody's happy, and I'm just going to think of it on my head, but the first motion would be that, I'll write it down, in short form, is the SOV motion. So, SRV motion. I was meant to think about it while I'm talking, but I didn't.
Multitasking.
SMRRA.
Talking at the same time.
So we'll keep it fairly simple because we can put in a bit more of a discussion around it as a distillation for today. But the motion would effectively be that the SMRRA oppose the 5th year SRV. So if I put that up as a motion, that'll become one of our motions from today. So formally that SMRRA will write to the council that we formally oppose the 5th year SRV being applied for and sought. SOUGHT. Does everybody like that as a motion? Malcolm?
It would be helpful to have access to the audited report for last year, because that would give a guidance as to how bad the finances are or are not.
That's in this paper. The annual financial statements are actually in the November paper.
Audited?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we get the auditor general or the auditor?
Ms. Sue Pritchard.
Auditor Sue Pritchard. Yeah, she's not the auditor general.
No, she's just one of the team.
Auditor.
They're up on the website.
It's up, is it? Right.
It is there.
Yep.
So hot.
So yeah, we actually get that at this meeting, and Sue's giving a presentation and answering questions. So we keep the motion to the SMRRA formally oppose the 5th year SRV being applied for and sought. Everyone in favour?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyone against? Carried. And then the other motion we were going to do was back to the discussion. Sorry, Councillor, you missed the discussion, but it's a query into the legality of Mr. Dunshay's appointment.
Okay.
So,
I can clarify that if you want.
yeah.
So the appointment was for less than 12 months. So the contract is between it's not the standard contract. Standard contract is required, as I'm sure you're aware, that if it's for more than 12 months or more. Because his contract was for 6 months only, the contract is between the recruitment agency and Snow Monaro Regional Council.
But then it's subject to it's in the email. Did you see the legal advice tendered by Councillor Williamson yesterday?
No.
That addresses that subject to the local government. Now, Councillor Williamson got a legal opinion of it, which is completely against that summary. That's like the staff or the executive's version. And yep, thank you. I read the same thing. But Councillor Williamson got a legal opinion which said that it doesn't obviate the requirements to appoint a natural person, and that whilst it can be for terms less than 12 months, there is still fixed requirements, and that appointing a subcontractor who subcontracts a proprietary limited or something is actually not going to pass the pub test, as it were. So we would basically write a motion, I'm just trying to think out of my head very quickly, that the SMRA right to SMRC seeking clarification and legal opinion with respect to the appointment of former interim CEO Stephen Dunshap. So that the motion that the SMRRA write to the Snowy Monaro Regional Council seeking clarification and a legal opinion with respect to the appointment of the former interim CEO Stephen Dunshap. You think we can word it any better? That's sort of good enough. All right, I'll now put the motion to everybody. The motion will be that the SMRRA write to the Snowy Monaro Regional Council seeking clarification and a legal opinion with respect to the appointment of former interim CEO Stephen Dunshap. Anybody in favour?
Does it need anything about the end?
That'll be in the bit that accompanies the letter. We've already written the letter.
Good. One you prepared earlier. Efficiency.
Carried unanimously. Any other final business? One thing I was going to mention, Darren McIntosh, 14th of July 2025, put up a post, I think, on his Substack or something. Crowdsourcing council performance. I noticed recently when using SnapSenSolve app to report a council issue, the Snap now contained a CRM record. This is new for council. Presents an opportunity to crowdsource service delivery data to drive improvements in service delivery outcomes. SnapSenSolve Squads feature lets residents turn everyday reports into a community-owned data set. I think we'll just put that on we'll reach out to Darren and see if he's got any uptake from it, but we'll put that down for our next meeting. He was looking at using a bit of an AI overlay to hoover up these things, because my personal experience of the CRM is that I've got questions in the CRM system from November last year that I've never had answers to. And one of those questions was, how does the CRM system work? It's never been answered. Cracks me up every time.
Still looking for the information.
Yeah. So one of the questions I asked was, would we be better using, council be better using a Zendesk as opposed to the CRM system that we've got? And I know some companies using Zendesk. Zendesk drives you insane because it's heavily automated, and so it doesn't let you forget things. It just keeps pumping out. It keeps an eye on what's going on. If someone else makes a similar, it automatically drags a similar report in and says, hey, this might be the same. You can split it back out. You can leave it joined. It's a lot more intrusive, but it's also a lot more proactive. Whereas our CRM has some success, but I think it's driven by the diligence of the staff. And when that staff person no longer does it or is on holidays, I think it falls over. But we'll put that in the next discussion. And outside of that,
Do we have a target date for the next meeting?
Christmas party would be
Well,
the next meeting. Would
It's
be
a Saturday before the next community meeting.
we could do it before the December.
I'm thinking probably New Year.
For the next face-to-face, yeah, we could. There's no council meeting in January, generally, depending on how we go. But do we want a Christmas party like we had last year? It was a pretty casual barbecue. Any ideas, thoughts?
Our diary will be fitting it in would be very difficult.
All right, well, we'll just leave that to be confirmed.
It would have to be like, when's the council meeting, the 20?
Third Thursday would be the.
No, it would have to be the 13th of December.
We'll let that hang in the air and we'll see. It's probably going to come out of.
Why don't we just have a Valentine's Day meeting on the 14th of February, which is a Saturday before the council meeting,
Good
the 20th
idea.
of February,
Everybody can remember
and we'll
that.
find somewhere to have it and you can bring cake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, so the next face-to-face ratepayers meeting at this stage will be February, unless otherwise advised that we might need to do a quick online roundup ahead of December.
We can always do Zoom.
We can always do a Zoom, and we can also just get together for a Christmas gathering and do it in January.
Christmas in July.
New Year's gathering, whatever. Anyway, thank you all for attending. There's the rocks if you want to have a plate.
You contaminated.
No, they're contaminated.
Contamination. We'll have a drink upstairs, I think. No? Elsewhere, we're gonna go find it somewhere else. No, it's not. One's for the meeting. They are, that is one paper. That's one. That's one. No, that is the paper.
Oh, right.
It's live.
So when you're flinting, when you get a piece of hard stone and you flint it like this, if you want to tap it down, you're breaking it down like that. Each one of those pieces comes off.
What are you guys gonna do? You've gotta get it honey together.
One sec, Joel. I'm not joking.
Still going.
It is still going. 2 hours on the dot. Thank you for watching. Thank you, shoppers. This message is for review. This message, I think we had some rude messages.
Big ones.
We had some big rude messages.
Somebody was flirting with her.
Sound really low. It's because we're on a mobile. That's because she's pretty hot. That woman is gorgeous, and I'm 26 years old. This is Nicole. You gorgeous. You interested in a 26-year-old? Sorry.
That's pretty cool.
This message is held for review. Is this a casting couch type thing going on? No.
But we're happy to have more members. Yeah.
Whose parent-teacher meeting did I stumble into? Our one. Do you think we gave old philosophers too much credit, i.e. Newton, an object in motion stays in motion? Yeah, well, every motion has an opposite motion, equal an opportunity. Sound really low? No, it's because we're on just a mobile without microphones. So, thanks for watching. Thank you for all your comments, most of which were blocked. So, anyway. Snowy Monaro, southern New South Wales, Australia, hence the accents. And we're talking about our local issues as part of local government. Ciao.